All right, so today we're gonna talk about aspect hosts and how we write lists post slate. So before we start, we have to recognize that the winning condition for Eldari in general is Lycus, right? It's a surprise that Lycus didn't get much of a change. The Lycus is the real winning condition that we have is that the things that Eldari can do and all the other factions cannot is that we can reliably flip our opponent's objective whenever we want to. Okay, because Lycus get to move 24 inches with flicker jump. She gets to charge with her entire squad. Whatever. You guys already know the drill. So in aspect hosts, Lycus is still very reliable. Mainly because you still get access to reroll hit rolls of 1, which is very powerful. So the very first thing you want to put in your list is definitely Lycus. You basically can't skip Lycus at this point. Lycus with her little 5 Ward Spider bodyguards is pretty much a given. Like, you definitely want this. And obviously take Power Blade Array. So you get 10 attacks at strength 4 AP 2 1 damage. And that's about it. And with 240 point, you now have your Lycus engine. So this is your very core Aeldari setup that is basically your win condition, okay? Now, the other things, our other win condition will be Janezar, right? Janezar. Now, no wonder both of these units got point increase, right? Janezar went from 105 to 120, and Lycus went from 120 to 135. The reason they are the only two aspect hosts, Phoenix Lord, that got point increase is because they're just that good, right? Like, you'd be surprised, like, how come they didn't increase Fuegan and they increased Fire Dragon instead? It's because Fuegan is trash, right? Without the ability to go back into transport reliably. Fuegan is actually, for 120, he's fine, he's whatever, but okay. So the other thing you want is Howling Banshees, right? Howling Banshees with the Executioner is pretty much like a standard setup. So now you have your 2-point flippers, right? One would go to your opponent's home objective, and the other one would go to the natural expansion. So, I mean, you can do this simultaneously, by the way. You can actually do this at the same turn. Now, your opponent are forced to answer, like, he has to go back and deal with Janezar and Lycus at the same time. They're both going to different directions, and they're both going to attempt to flip the objective as much as they can, right? So now that's pretty much our win condition. So now, now we have to think about, okay, well, that's cool and all, but what's the setup, right? How do we successfully set the thing up? Well, the very first thing you need in aspect hosts is you have to. You cannot let your opponent jail you in the very first 2 turns, because you need space for Lycus and Janezar to go to and to stage in the midfield and be ready to flip points. Okay? So you cannot be jailed. And the best way to not get jailed, I mean, there are 2 options, but I think you can choose which one you wanted to, but, I think you can prefer, some people prefer one over the other. The first option is Rangers, right? Rangers is the most iconic unit for the entire Eldar Codex. If you know how to play Rangers well, you pretty much know how to play this faction. Because Ranger, the whole point of this unit is the ability to do the D6 normal move after your opponent ends a move within 9 inches. All right, it can be a fallback, it can be an advance, it can be like a normal move, doesn't really matter. As long as any of your model stand within 9 inches of my Rangers can immediately move up to D6 inches. Now, yes, it's D6, not straight up 6. So you can roll a 1 and basically did nothing. Or you can roll a 6 and move 6 inches, which is pretty far, right? And these guys have infiltrators. So they can camp in the mid, behind cover, behind line of sight and everything. And once your opponents start moving towards them, you can relocate them in your opponent's turn, which is pretty amazing, right? Say if your opponent wants to charge them, well, let's say your opponent move into 3 inches into them, and they're going to do like a 3-inch charge. Well, guess what? I'm going to move these 6 inches, and if I roll like a 5, your 3-inch charge immediately becomes an 8-inch charge, and it just becomes increasingly harder, right? It really just foils your opponent's plan. So that's like the first thing you can do with Rangers. I mean, there's a lot of tricks and stuff. It really takes a lot of actual combat experience, so I'm not going to go into the specific today. But yeah, that's Rangers. The other options you have is Striking Scorpions. Now, Striking Scorpions is obviously a lot more costly, but for a good reason, right? It's costly for a good reason. Striking Scorpion, first of all, it shares all the benefit that Rangers does, but does something better. Now, what Rangers really do, well, obviously, I mean, Striking Scorpion can't do reactionary move, but Ranger have stealth, which is -1 to hit when shot upon, right? But like, Striking Scorpions also have the same ability. Striking Scorpion also have stealth. It also has infiltrators, and it has Scout 7. So you can put them like in ridiculous plays during deployment, and then you get to move them 7 inches in any direction after your opponent and you decide who's going to go first, right? Let's say you go first. Well, these guys going to move forward and to, more deep into your opponent's deployment zone if you want to. Or if your opponent goes first and you don't want to send your Scorpion to death, you can basically move them backwards and your opponent can't get to them anymore. So they're a very elusive unit that requires a little bit of finesse to play, but like not much. I mean, like, it doesn't take a genius to figure out how to do like, Scout 7 shenanigans with Infiltrator. It really doesn't, right? It's very simple. What's so cool about these guys is they have this ability that allows them to punch up a little bit, which is critical on 5s. If they make a charge move this turn, they get to crit on 5s on their hit. So all their chain sabers, I'm sorry, my bad. All their Scorpion Chainsword has sustained hit 1. And it's AP 1 and 1 damage weapon. So it's basically, it is a Astartes Chainsword pretty much. But they swing 4 times, which is, slightly better than Astartes. Actually, no, it's not better. Yeah, it's actually 4. Yeah, it's the same. The same as our Astartes. We hit as hard as our Astartes, but we crit on 5s. So for every 5 and 6s, we get to have 1 extra attack because of sus 1, right? And the big guy, the Exarch, right, the Striking Scorpion Exarch, has the Biting Blade, which is the weapon that I really recommend. Strength 6, AP 3, 1 damage with sus 1. Yeah, the Strength 6 really, really do punch up, and especially the AP 3, right? It kind of finishes the job. It can... I actually managed to kill like a piranha, like a Tau piranha with like just 5 Striking Scorpion. It was crazy, right? It was just, it was kind of insane that the thing actually happened, which is kind of funny. But anyway, moving on. So Striking Scorpions, right? 85 point. So that's 30 point more than what a Ranger can do, but much better armor. They have armor of 3 up, not 4 up, by the way. It's 3 up armor, so they have much better armor than all the other Aspect Warrior. Sorry, my bad. And then they, it's just, they're just pretty tough unit. They're just a solid, tough unit. And you can't blow them away with just Bolter. I mean, of course, they still die to bolter fire, but like not as easily as Rangers. I mean, remember these guys have -1 to hit, right? So you gotta like dedicate like real firepower at them to really remove them from the board because they have -1 to hit, and they have and obviously you're gonna put them in cover. So they have 3+ armor, and if they got shot by AP 0 weapon, they still make 3 ups. But if they get shot by AP 1 weapon, they still get to make 3 ups because you're gonna put them on cover. At -1 to hit, and if your opponent doesn't kill them in 1 salvo, well, guess what? You're gonna use Battle Focus token to move them back towards the ruins, so your opponent can't see them anymore. Yeah, that's pretty much what you're going to do. So you have 2 options. You have Rangers and Striking Scorpions that you can choose to, take a little bit of both, or just take either one, or or you can do it like me, just take both, right? You can take both because both have their merits. Rangers are really good at move blocking, and they're really cheap to just move block. Striking Scorpion is kind of expensive to move block. I treat Striking Scorpion as like a first responder unit. It's like if there's something I really want to kill and I don't want to send out my Banshee, they are my first responders. That's what they are there for. Okay, anyway, moving on. So, I mean, obviously, I'm not gonna just take one Ranger and one Striking Scorpion. I might take like 2 Rangers or 3 Rangers with like 2 Striking Scorpions, but like not just leaving like that, okay? These are just the options that we have. Okay, so now we have the mid board secured. Now, like, my opponent cannot simply overwhelm the mid board and prevent my Lycas from rapid ingressing, all right, into the location I want her to. And my Janezar is going to be safely parking her ass behind the midfield ruins, where she can charge the home objective a turn after, which is really good. This is what we're going to do. Now we have to think about, okay, now we need someone to actually hold objectives, right? We need one in our home objective, and we need another one for our expansion. Like, someone has to stand there, right? Someone has to. Now, whatever you choose to do that kind of job, we have several options, right? Our first option is Dark Reapers. Now, Dark Reapers is a very versatile unit. It's a very aggressive point control unit that they can literally spend the entire game doing nothing but just standing on point, because they're only 90 point, and they have the option, their Exarch can take Tempest Launcher, which is 2d6 indirect fire weapon with AP1, right? So versus when you're doing indirect fire and you're fighting against, and you're shooting against, let's say, like a guardsman who has like 5+ armor, he still have to make 5 up because you have AP1, which negates his cover, right? So it's not that bad. It's not 401, it's 401. Pretty decent, right? Pretty decent. All right. Now, obviously, you hit on 4s because any hit of 1, 2, 3 automatically fails, regardless that Dark Reaper does not. They ignore all hit modifier, but it just automatically fails. So yeah, you can't. So you can put Dark Reapers on your home objective, starting the game with them on your home objective. It's pretty decent, right? Even if you don't take more Dark Reaper, which I would definitely recommend doing so, but like, it's okay. Let's say you just want to take a single squad of Dark Reaper, you can. Right, they can just stay there, shoot, and near the end of the game, when objective is no longer like a winning or losing factor, you can probably send someone out. You can basically have the guy that does the indirect fire to stand on the objective, and have the other 4 guys to poke out over the building so they can still see their target. Yeah, that's like a very good idea you can do. That after all the deep strike shenanigans are gone, after all the reserve unit shenanigans are gone, they can do that. You have one guy dip his toe, and then use the 2-inch, and then you conga line them so they have like a 2-inch unit coherency, so you can still put them where you want them to. So that's pretty good. It's a pretty secure home objective camper, right? And the other option we have, which is not very common nowadays, but I guess I still want to mention it, is Storm Guardians. Storm Guardians, and with maybe like a character, maybe like Eldra Uthron, or maybe no Uthron at all, just Storm Guardians. But usually if you're going to take Storm Guardians, you often want Eldra Uthron to come with anyway, because it's like you're taking a babysitter, but you have no baby. You have no baby to babysit. So it's kind of like, okay, well, if I'm already taking babysitter, might as well just grab a baby, right? The thing about Storm Guardians, it's like, okay, for 110 point, that's 2 Rangers, by the way, kind of expensive. They do have decent amount of OC, right? It's OC too, but they don't do much, man. They really don't do much. They have 5+ vulnerable save, and they have sticky objective. which is okay. I mean, it's not bad. The barrier unit has a 5+ marble save, which is okay, but that's about it. For like the cost of 2 Ranger Squad and the cost of 1 Shining Spear, I don't know, man. Like, okay. Is sticky objective worth it? I think it depends on map, but most of the time it's not, because even if you do sticky your home objective, you still have to have someone to stand nearby just so your home objective doesn't get flipped by stuff like Inceptors or any sort of like deep strike shenanigans. Like, you still want someone to stand there. And if you're going to put people in on your point anyway, what's the point of sticking it, right? It doesn't really matter, right? Either way, you don't really need Stone Guardian. I guess that's why Stone Guardian is not like falling out of favor a little bit. They got point increase as well this time for no apparent reason. They got like 10 point increase. It's like, okay, whatever. Who cares, dude? So it's like, yeah, probably not Stone Guardians. But if you want to take Ultra Uthron, for some reason, if you really want that +1 to wound, you can. And if you want that +1 CP at the start of your command phase, you can. But like, last time I checked, Aspect Host is not that hungry of CP. Not that much. Right? I mean, it depends on the matchup. Sometimes you might need the extra CP to burn through, let's say, Ignore modifier. Sorry, not this one. The Warrior's Focus, right? You ignore the attack's ballistic skill, weapon skill, strength, armor penetration, damage, and any or all modifiers to hit roll, right? So pretty good, pretty decent, right? So if your opponent pops smoke or pop armor of contempt, you're just gonna pop this and say, nope, not gonna happen. You're just gonna ignore everything, right? And preternatural precision is another thing that you probably want to use very often. But it's like, who are you going to use it to? Back then, it was Fire Dragon, because this thing with Fire Dragon, it just fired, dude. Like, no pun intended. Because Fire Dragon has full rerolls on their weapon when shooting at monsters and vehicles. So, like, they have a much better chance to trigger all the special abilities, like +1 and Lethals. But now the Fire Dragons are quote-unquote dead. And they can't get back on transport anymore. I'm not sure who's gonna like really utilize this. Like, who's gonna like really use the preternatural precision? Like, maybe Dark Reapers, I guess. But then Dark Reaper, like, yeah, sure, you got reroll heroes of 1, which is pretty cool. But like, what are you gonna do, right? It's like 10 shot, and I don't know. I just feel like it's probably not worth it. Like, I don't see any reason to use this after Fire Dragon's demise. Maybe, I'm just saying, maybe you could use this with Swooping Hawk and Baharroth, where there's a very fun combo I've been thinking about, which is Baharroth with 10 Swooping Hawk, and this is why, right? The reason why we're taking like 3x5 Swooping Hawk back then, it was because, you know, the 10 Swooping Hawk got point increased, right? It got 190, so that's 85 for, wait, no, 95, yeah, 95, 190, so I'm just, I can't do math. Oh my god, what's going on? Let's do this. Really? Divide by 2. Yeah, 95, it's the same right now, so there's no reason to like take like 5-man squad anymore. You can just take like a full 10-man squad, and then by doing this, you also get much better chance at inflicting up to 6 mortal wounds with your grenade, because you're rolling 10 dice instead of just 5. So you can reliably deal much more mortal wounds with that. And their weapons are pretty neat. And the XR weapon is kind of, it's very important if you're taking units of 5 with Hawk's Talon, because AP22 damage, it's pretty bonkers if you remove the shrine token and everything. But like, yeah, that's one way to play it. But now, if you take like a 10-man and then you team it up with Baharroth, that's 115 plus 190 point, which is no shit, 305. Okay, yeah, that's like a decent amount of package. But here's the thing, okay, like these folks, has lethal hits. Sorry, not Hawk's Talon. Let's take Lost Blaster. Yeah. These guys already have lethal hit. Okay. Baharroth with the Fury of Tempest also has lethal hit. Now, if you give them sus1 with this, right, and ignore cover if you really wanted to, but I don't see any reason to do that, then you are in for a treat, because now every time you crit, it's going to become one extra hit and then lethal hit, which is pretty nasty if you think about it. It's a lot of shot. It is a lot of attack coming to your way. All right. So also they don't have assault, so they can like really run really far and shoot at their opponents. Oh, here's the thing. Like, okay, there's a cool thing about Baharroth, and the reason why I brought this up in the first place. I mean, there are two parts to this. The first part is easy, which we're going to talk about right now, is that for Baharroth, his weapon is Fury of Tempest. It's 4 attacks at strength 6 AP 1/2 damage. Doesn't really look that impressive until you realize he has this ability that is called Cry of the Wind. Each time this model is set up on the battlefield until the end of the turn, each time this model makes a range attack, on successful unmodified hit roll, scores a critical hit. Basically, it means every time Baharroth hit with his attack, which he hit on 2, by the way, and reroll once because you're aspect host, what happens is all your hit will translate into critical hits. So all the 4 attack is going to immediately wound because of lethal hit. And if you pop the preternatural position, it's going to have sus1 as well. So by simply shooting with Baharroth, you're going to have 4 lethal hits and then another 4 sus1, which you get to roll the wounds normally. That's a lot of attack of 2 damage attack coming from Baharroth, just himself. Right? So, and his weapon has sus1 as well. His melee weapon has sus1 as well. But like, this is kind of not as relevant because this will only make sense to range attack, and it only happens when you set it up in the battlefield, right? And if you set it up 6 inches, you can't declare charge. So, if you want to do like a 9-inch charge, you can, but like that's not the thing we want. Another reason why you want to take Baharroth is like his entire Hawk crew can land 6 inches in deep strike. Okay? When this model is leading a unit at the end of your opponent's turn, if this unit is not within engagement range with one or more enemy unit, you can remove it from the battlefield into a strategic reserve. So that's the first part of this rule, right? There's 2 parts to this one single rule. The first part is, if you're not within engagement range at the end of your opponent's turn, you can remove it back to a strategic reserve, right? So whether or not you remove it and put it in reserve, or you put it in reserve this way, or you put it in reserve naturally, it doesn't matter what happens to the next section of the rule, which is, in addition, while this model is leading a unit, when that unit is set up on the battlefield using the Deep Strike ability in your movement phase, it can use this ability. So when you arrive on the battlefield as Deep Strike, you can set up anywhere 6 inches away from your opponent. All right? But you cannot charge in the same turn, which you're not going to because, you're not exactly a melee unit. So what that thing does is it allows the entire crew to do the 8-inch grenade bullshit immediately, right? So every time I land, so they become like a skirmish unit, like a real skirmish unit. All right. They become like really respectable skirmish unit with Baharroth. Now it's like, okay, I can basically 6-inch deep strike anywhere I want, right? And then upon landing, any of my opponent within 8 inches, I get to pick one. Any line of sight, by the way, but just line of sight of one of my models, I got to roll 10 dice because Baharroth, by the way, does not have the Swooping Hawk keyword, so the Baharroth does not count towards one of the models. I get to roll 10 dice, and on any 4-ups, it's 1 more wound. So on average, I should be rolling 5. I should be rolling 5 mortal wounds, so pretty close, right? About five mortal wounds. So upon landing, I'll be dealing on average 5 to 6 mortal wounds because I can only deal up to 6. And then I get to shoot with my weapon. All right, I get to shoot with my weapon, and then I get to pop this ability, Preternatural Precision, with +1, right? And the whole thing just like, okay, so that's like 40 shot of +1 and lethal, which is kind of crazy. Yeah, that's kind of insane if you ask me. Right? Yeah, sure. Of course, it does not have AP. It's not that crazy. It's probably better in Warhost, but who cares, dude? Who cares? This is Aspect Host. We got rerolls, man. Rerolls rock, right? So that's another thing I want to talk about. Oh, if you want to do this, you still want to take like another 5 Swooping Hawk. I mean, I still would. I still would do that. All right, because I bought 15 Swooping Hawk. I want to use more Swooping Hawk, so there's that, right? Oh yeah, and spiders. I still think taking multiple copies of spider is still a good idea in Aspect Host. Maybe not so much in any other detachment, but like in Aspect Host, I think taking 2 to 3 spiders is still pretty good. But it does become a little bit more costly, so you got to think about it, right? It went from 95 to 105. It's 10 points, so yeah. Well, that's spider. Spider does that, right? I mean, the point hike is pretty much prepared for Lycas, so oh well. They should just slap the thing on Lycas, which they did anyway. But okay. So now with 2 spiders, Swooping Hawk is ready. Rangers, Howling Banshee, Dark Creepers, all right. Now we gotta start looking at more of a space unit, all right? What do I mean by space unit? A space unit is something that you use to control your field with, right? Baharroth, Jane'Zar, and Lycas, these are all time unit. They come out, and then they destroy something, and then they basically force your opponent to react. Now, obviously, your opponent's gonna go back and kill them all. But then you need to have something really big in the front to tell your opponent says, okay, well, yes, I sent Jane'Zar, yes, I sent Lycas to your base and to your expansion. But if you go back for them, if you choose to go back for them, my avatar is going to dominate the midboard. And you're not going to like that. And that's why I really suggest... I've been playing with Avatar, and it works really well for me. It works really, really, really well for me, okay? Ever since the demise of Fire Dragon, I think Avatar has been pretty okay for me. Like, on the reason, it's an excellent anchor, right? Avatar is a very good anchor. Look, Avatar is not a unit that you take just to, like, dick around and try to kill stuff. No, it's not. He's an anchor. And the whole point of an anchor is to secure your own location while threatening your opponent to not come close. But when it comes down to it, you can send him out and do something, right? So he's not like a Wraith Brick, all right? He's not like a very defensive stuff. Like, he can do some damage, but doing damage is not the point why you brought him. You're taking him for a very easy reason of telling your opponent to fuck off and do not come close. And you still have like a giant beat stick that you can wield if any monster vehicle dares to trespass your deployment zone or your side of the board. Okay. So now we have time unit. Now we can think about, we still have about 530 points left that we can play around with. Now, we have quite a bit of time unit. We do. We have a lot of Swooping Hawks. We have spiders, right? Now we got to think about, okay, is there anything else we need? Do we want Asherman and Dar Avenger? I say no. I say no. Well, I mean, I have Asherman. I have him painted up. I'm actually pretty proud of the whole paint job, but Asherman is just not cutting it. He's not cutting it anymore. For a very good reason. Because first of all, Dark Avenger fucking sucks, right? And I don't know. Maybe we should take a Falcon with Asherman. I mean, that would give us like a very good space control unit. It's like you don't want to get shot by Asherman because you don't want to, and he gets to go hop back on transfer and everything. Did Asherman got point increase? I don't think he did. Yeah, I think Asherman is still. Yeah, he's still doing. Asherman's being himself. Yeah, and maybe Fire Dire Avengers, and then maybe like a Falcon, right? Obviously, Falcon, you're gonna give him like appropriate weapon. Dire Avenger, you're gonna give him a token. And it's gonna be like a Avenger catapult. All right, so we have 200 points left. Now, what we can do with this 200 point is very interesting. We can either increase our early game roadblock, which is Rangers and Striking Scorpions. We can do that. Or we can get more of the backfield space control unit, which is Dark Reapers. Okay. Now, Dark Reapers are, like we said, we're going to use them to hold objectives and whatnot, right? Now, we can take 2 more Dark Reapers and call it a day. That will be 20 points left over, which is kind of wasteful, but yeah, we probably don't want this, right? We could spend that 20 point to like upgrade something. I'm not sure which, but we could potentially do this, which is not advisable because there's no reason to do it. I mean, you're basically consolidating 2 Dark Reapers into 1 squad for extra 15 points just for the sake of spending it. You don't really have any sort of benefit for doing that. Because you don't have an autarch to lead them. So what will be the point? There's like no point. Unless you remove the Swooping Hawk and then give them an autarch and then give them the Mantle of Wisdom, then it might work. Wait, actually, no, you can't. You can't even do that. Yeah, Shimmerstone, Strategic Savant, probably Shimmerstone. Yeah, but like, what would be the point? It's like, what would be the point? Like, yeah, you can put them like with Dark Reapers, but then you have no rerolls. I'm not even sure with what's up with the Shimmerstone. I don't think you need Shimmerstone in this case. Actually, you probably want Strategic Savant, so you have like insane amount of OC out of that 1 squad, right? It's you can. It's like but like, okay, what would be your opponent can just charge them, right? Because they're not like melee unit or anything. It's like your opponent can just simply charge them and then they'll just kill them. And it doesn't matter how much OC they have. It just, who cares, dude? But like, that's just one way to do it. You could take Autarch and obviously you're going to give him like not shuriken pistol because that sucks. You can take a Reaper launcher. And you're going to like sit back, kick back and chillax with all the boys, right? All the Dark Reaper boys. I honestly think Shimmerstone is probably better than the Strategic Savant because they're probably going to get shot most of the time. -1 to wound is pretty cool. That basically means any small arms fire that is not strength 6 or above is going to wound you on 4s, which is pretty decent. Any other strength 6 or above weapon that's going to wound you on 2s is going to wound you on 3s instead. So that's pretty good, right? And then with Autarch, if with this, and then if you don't die after people shoot at you, your Autarch gets to reroll any agile maneuver, which is fade away, right? Fade away. You get to do fade away. Fade back, not fade away. Fade back. You get to re-roll that d6. So if you roll a 1, well, guess what? You're going to re-roll that, and it's probably going to be better. Okay? Star Engines, man, God, how they killed my boy. Fleeing Shadow, nah. Swift as Wind, Opportunity Seize, probably not going to use this. Sudden Strike, no. So, yeah. So, pretty much just Opportunity Seize and fall back. You get to re-roll that result. So, pretty okay. And -1 to your CP cost. So, if you're going to pop Preternatural Precision on these folks, it's going to be free every turn. Every battle round, at least. Not every turn. I think it's every battle round. Yeah, once per battle round. Yeah, you can do that for free. So, yeah. That's pretty much the list for Aspect Host. It's it's a little bit light on early game roadblock. But I think with Avatar and Dark Reaper controlling the space, I think we should be fine. You can have Dark Reapers holding the home objective and have like Rangers or Striking Scorpion to hold like the expansion in the early game. And then once excuse me. Once the game develops, once you develop more of your pieces, you can like start moving Dark Reapers onto your objective, and then you can like go from there, right? You can like start going from there. Or you know what? Even better, you can actually put them in reserve. I think putting Autarch and like Dark Reapers in reserve is a brilliant idea, especially if you give them fucking Shimmerstone, which is -1 to wound. You can really like put them in like very weird ass corners and then like just like pop out of nowhere and just start shooting, and then yeah, that's pretty good. And like all your reserve stuff, let's see how much of this shit you're gonna reserve. You're gonna like reserve the Hawks, obviously. Yeah, the Hawks is gonna be actually. I might not reserve the Hawk because doesn't it allows me to like fucking at the end of my opponent's turn I can just remove it and put it in strategic reserve. So it's like by the end of turn 1, I would have this unit on the board and then put it back in reserve anyway. So yeah, you will start this guy on board because either way you're not allowed to deep strike on turn 1 anyway. So you get to put them back in strategic reserve, and you get a deep strike later. So that's cool, right? That's really cool. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's a interesting list to say the least. I mean, I don't really agree with Dire Avenger, Falcon, and like Ashurman. That's a huge point sink right there. Let's actually do a calculation. Ashurman plus Ashurman, Dire Avenger, and Falcon. 330 point. Holy crap, that's a lot of point, dude. That's like, my God. 330 point? Oh God, what you can do with this, you can take like Fuegan if you wanted to, and then not a group of Fire Dragon, and you will still have 90 point left over. Right? And then that 90 point you can probably like get the Shimmerstone off from that guy. And then you can get like a third spider if you wanted to. Yeah, there's a lot of things you can do. There's a lot of things you can do. But like I think having a Falcon is not that bad of a choice because like you can have Ashurman. Like, okay, here's the thing. Even if your Ashurman doesn't get on the Falcon transport, your Banshee can. Janizar can. Like, especially how like fucking Skyborn Sanctuary works right now. You can essentially use Janizar along with Falcon, and then they can kill something and then get back on Falcon if they wanted to. Now, of course, Falcon's still gonna be destroyed a turn after, but that's why you have Avatar. It's like, oh, you wanna shoot at my Falcon? Well, guess what? Avatar is also here. So, take your pick, right? So whatever you kill now, the other one's gonna get you later. Right? I think that's a pretty good combo to pull off. It's like the moment you put out your Falcon and Howling Banshee is the moment where your Avatar of King also comes out to a point where your opponent has to make a choice between shooting Avatar of King or like your Falcon, because otherwise you don't really have a monster or vehicle to let your opponent to dish out their anti-tank firepower. I think this gives them a pretty good choice. Anyway, so yeah, that's pretty much about it. And I hope you guys like this little talk about Aeldari. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.